So today we are holding, as I said, web conference of 18th annual meeting of the Jharkhand Ophthalmological Society. And this annual web conference is divided into 4 parts. Today we are conducting the first part. So today's webinar is divided into 2 sessions. First session is Dr. Kashyap Extramural Oration, which will be given by Dr. Partha Biswas, and guest lectures by Dr. Chandrima Paul and Dr. Kanti Biswas. It will be followed by a small virtual award ceremony. Before I invite Dr. Partha Biswas for his oration, I would like to introduce our legendary recipient of this oration, Dr. Partha Biswas, Chairman Scientific Committee, AIOS. Dr. Partha Biswas is Director of BBI Foundation, Kolkata. He is Chairman Scientific Committee of AIOS. He has innumerable national and international awards, presentations, and publications to his credit. He is the past Chairman, Academic Research Committee of AIOS, and presently he occupies the hot and most coveted seat of Chairman Scientific Committee, AIOS. So welcome, Dr. Partha Biswas. And over to Dr. Partha Biswas for his oration.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bharti. May I share the screen now?
Yes.
It's a matter of great pride, and I'm absolutely humbled by this prestigious oration that I'm supposed to deliver. A man of such great stature as Dr. Partha Biswas, someone who was legendary, who was a teacher of teachers in Jharkhand and beyond, has occupied a very prestigious seat in the memories of every one of us, known nationally and internationally. If I might say a few words about Dr. Partha Biswas, it's very small, simple, but as well as extremely deep. The foundation of the hospital that Dr. Partha Biswas has laid is not only a hospital by its repute, by its tradition, but it is a hospital with a hospitality to one and all patients of the region of the Eastern India, not only of Jharkhand itself. The hospital was a dream of late Dr. Kashyap, and with the hospital came the flood of patients, the flood of memories, cherished memories that anyone entering the hospital would remember the founder as an luminary in the state of Jharkhand. Dr. Kashyap completed his MBBS from Darbhanga Medical College and Hospital in 1955. He did his Master of Surgery in Eye from DMCH, Bihar in 1958 and DLO in 1962 from PMCH, Patna. He was appointed as Civil Assistant Surgeon in 1956. He was State Officer, Trachoma Control Pilot Project in Bihar and Aligarh in 1960. Assistant Professor in IMCH from 1962 to 1965 and Associated Professor from 1965 to 1975. He became Professor at Head of Department from 1975 onwards. He had a wide vision and conducted blindness relief camps wherever he was posted. He happened to be in the top slot for many new procedures that were adopted by the ophthalmologists of India. Among the first few to start 10-0 nylon stitches and intraocular lens implantation during cataract surgery. He was the first to start keratoplasty in this region in 1979. And amongst the pioneers for combined cataract and glaucoma surgery. He began operating through the microscope from 1979. He was an excellent teacher, an exemplary father, and a husband. If you see very brief biodata, it shows the revolution which Dr. Kashyap had brought about in the medical field, in the ophthalmological field, in his career, and every bit he transmitted to his teacher, to his patients, and to his students. Thereby, to his students, he lit a candle, and that candle that he lit for them has enlightened many other candles that have been transmitted from the past to the present and will be transmitted to the future. So this was Dr. B. a luminary in the field of ophthalmology, a person who is revered by everyone who has come in touch with him. I thank Jharkhand Ophthalmological Society for having an oration in his name. I am extremely humbled to give this oration today. It is the light to candle and for these tender eyes. Tender eyes need the most tender touch. And it is remarkable to understand that there are 1.4 million eyes of a child that is blind today. And in this blindness, these children are going to grow up and think of the years and years of blindness that they are going to suffer from. These tender eyes need special attention, need special thought. And it is the prerogative of every anterior segment surgeon to do something for these tender eyes. Learning to do a pediatric cataract is not so difficult, but it requires patience, it requires learning, because the first step of anterior capsulotomy is quite different because of the elasticity of the anterior capsule. And this is the first step towards the success of a pediatric cataract. The next part is the simplest, is the easiest. Removal of the cortical matter and the lens matter, which is very soft, is nothing of a challenge. But the next part, carving the posterior capsule rhexis, is again a tough part and has to be learned with meticulous detail. Grasping that edge that you have created with a puncture of the posterior capsule, re-grasping it from the other side, and then carving out a neat posterior capsule rhexis that should be approximately 3.5 to 4 millimeters, requires practice, requires diligence, requires teaching. The intraocular lens has to go in the bag between the anterior capsule and the posterior capsule rhexis. And the leading haptic must go straight into this area. And this area must be carved out so well that it can lodge the single piece intraocular lens. This is another case of a child in which the mother had suffered rubella infection. And you can see that it is an opacified cortical matter and nucleus matter. We do not know exactly what is in store for us, but after doing the capsular rhexis, it looks that the full posterior capsule is totally scarred and totally fibrosed. So we place our intraocular lens in the bag, a multi-piece intraocular lens, and then puncture that area with the MVR blade and carve out a posterior capsular rhexis through the side port with the vitrector. So the vitrector is the tool to make a posterior capsular rhexis. Let's come to this patient with iris coloboma, with lens coloboma. So the lens coloboma has to be supported and the iris coloboma has to be supported with the high molecular weight viscoelastic. Staining the capsule is the next step. And once the anterior capsule is stained, then the anterior capsular rhexis needs to be done. As you can see that the anterior capsular rhexis is going so far nearly the nodes, but this is important, and the adequate size of the anterior capsular rhexis is a must. Then making posterior capsular rhexis, and the posterior capsular rhexis has to be carved out and made adequate. Then filling in the intraocular lens in the capsular bag, but then this is a decentered capsular bag with the intraocular lens. So in goes the CTR, and the CTR has to be such that it should be just adequate sized, and then the posterior and the anterior vitrectomy has to be done and removed. Now this is a patient in which there is liquefied cortex, and all that you have to do, remember that the anterior capsule is going to be as elastic, and this anterior capsule rhexis might give way. So removal of the liquefied matter, cortical matter, is mandatory. Taking off the anterior capsule and removing the amount of cortical matter, and the rest of the things look to be quite easy. So doing the posterior capsular rhexis again centrally and getting it out, and then placing the intraocular lens within the capsular bag. But look at that. So the anterior capsular rhexis was not too well made. That needs to be repaired, because remember the fact that this anterior capsule is going to opacify and is going to stretch out unidirectionally and create a problem. The anterior vitrectomy is a must from the posterior capsular rhexis of every patient. This case has a posterior lenticonus, and with all posterior lenticonus eyes, we know that there is dehiscence of the posterior capsule and is susceptible to a rupture. So no hydrodissection in this case, and removal of the anterior cortex and the liquefied nucleus matter needs to be taken place. The removal of the cortex displays that there is an opacification of the posterior lenticonus. So we have with us a little bit of a problem. So this opacified area has to be neatly carved out, and the posterior capsular rhexis has to be made. So the stretched and stretched part of the capsule have to be negotiated. And then with the vitrector, the anterior vitrectomy needs to be done. Placing in intraocular lenses inside the capsular bag is the most important matters. So a few pearls for the pediatric cataract management by our comprehensive ophthalmologists. A detailed preoperative examination is mandatory. An accurate biometry on the table is what is required. An adequate rhexis. The posterior capsule rhexis has to be done well. Intraocular lens in the bag and anterior vitrectomy. Post-operative infection control and a post-operative abnormal management, and a lifelong follow-up is what is required for all these tender eyes. And if done well, these eyes will enjoy the light of the world. And it is the prerogative of all of us anterior cataract surgeons to take up the call and to do our share of posterior of the pediatric cataract for these patients and help alleviate the pediatric blindness in our country. Thank you very much for your patient hearing.
Thank you, Dr. Partha, for the excellent oration. So, prepared a small virtual award ceremony So we are going to play it. So,
it will take a couple of minutes time, I believe, for the judges to
compile the results and
send
send it to Google
the agency.
site. So Dr. Partha, should we switch on play the award ceremony?
Yes. After such a hard work.
It's fun.
That will give them a break.
तो उसको चला दें?
Yes,
yes.
Before that, Bhati, I think I would really take 2 minutes of the time of these youngsters, and I'm sure it's very late, quite late in the evening, but still, I think the 40 presentations that we have gone through have really been eye-openers, and to the amount of work that is being done in Jharkhand, and it is very inspirational to see that the youngsters are doing good work, but I would like to congratulate their supervisors, their mentors, who have really taken these youngsters forward. Again, having said this, the presentations were of good quality, very good quality, and some presentations were exceptional, definitely. So it is for Jharkhand to see that every presentation goes to that national level. That's very important for us. So year by year, we need to step up the presentation quality, the presentation content, and go to the next level. So each of the presenters, I have 1 or 2 small tips to give. If it's not too late for them, and if it's not too late for you, Bharti.
No, it's not late for me, but then
for your words, it's never late, sir. Please.
Yeah, you are so patient. All the judges are so patient. You are listening and answering and questioning. You give so much of time, but then all the presenters, I switch on the video.
Your words will be golden words for them, sir. Your words will be golden words for the young officers.
They are listening. Let him complete. Let him complete. Yeah, please, sir.
So what I would like to tell our youngsters is, there were a few presentations, you would have watched all your colleagues' presentation, and you immediately would know that this presentation is of that quality. So if you think that your presentation can be improved, so next time you're presenting, it must improve. So that's about the presentation. The presentation is just one part of the evaluation. But the most important part is the content that you're going to present. Your content must be something that is beyond what others have said, others have proved, others have elucidated. Even if it is pterygium, which is a very, very common subject, something that is being dealt with over years and years and years, what you can present is pterygium in Jharkhand. Is there something new you can present on this? So the newness of your presentation is the most important thing. There was one presentation which started with my research question. So that is a very, very good point. That is a very good right to put in your presentation. My research question. Yes. And at the end of your 20 slides or 15 slides, you have to answer that research question. From my study, this is what I answer. So, right from the beginning to the end is a continuity that you have done. That's point number 2. Number 3 is, when any presentation is being judged, as Dr. Bharti and our officers, Dr. P also said, that we are going to judge on the originality, on the content, on the analysis, on your presentation, and on your adherence to your time. So all these become important when you're presenting. Something else also becomes important. The format of your presentations. See, there were some slides, which were so full of sentences. When you're presenting, your presentation slides should just be a cue to your presentation. You don't have to write down everything and you have to read from top to down and 10 lines in a slide. One slide should not contain more than 4 or 5 lines. and you have to complete your sentence. Okay. So your presentation should have just cues, should have just points there. The other thing is, it's a webinar. So please remember, even in webinar, you have to be aptly dressed and you have to have the light proper. You have to have a strong internet connection, very good, so that your presentation is flawless. Otherwise, how can you present this year and year of hard work that you have done? So this is culmination of your presentation. So, all these small things matter. And the last and the most important is rehearsing. Rehearsing in front of your colleagues, rehearsing in front of your teachers, and getting them to ask something that could put a hole in your presentation. So you are well prepared, and you have to, please remember that your judges don't know at all as much as you know. You know better about the subject you're presenting. So you have to answer with confidence. We might just know a few things, and but you have read much more of literature than we have. So, and it's also important that you stick to your points, you stick to the aims and objectives of your study, and you give it a logical conclusion. So I think that's a lot of gyan from us. But if Rupak wishes to add something more, Rupak, please.
No, but I think I also get a lot of
Dr. Rupak, we can't hear you.
Yeah, but yeah. Is it better?
Your voice is breaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still.
Yes, it's better.
Yeah, always whenever you listen Partha, you get some kind of extra information you get. So I'm also really honored to be part of this, and I get information. The only thing is that your like the way Partha has explained everything, but you argue with your knowledge, but there should not be, the body language should not be in a this should be in a humble way. So needless to say that.
Absolutely. So any of the presenters have anything to say? We have submitted the marks. So any presenters have anything to say about the judges? It should be a two-way traffic. We are living in the 20th century, and
yes.
Yes, we are going to show you. We have received, we have sent it, and we have received the result from the SAI, and we have sent it to the president. He will soon announce it. In the meantime, we are going to show you the award, the virtual award ceremony. Did you like it?
Yeah, very good.
Very much. Thank you very much.
Sir, Doctor, you see the award ceremony?
Yeah, it was wonderful.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I never looked that good.
And probably you'll be receiving the original certificate and the memento.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll be sending it very soon.
And
When
the
it comes to
hospital result